Hello everyone and welcome to my channel YNR Trends. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Nick Newman stood frozen in the doorway of the dimly lit Newman Ranch study, his breath catching in his chest as the revelation unfolded before him like some cruel play scripted by fate itself, the fire crackling behind Victor casting monstrous shadows that flickered across his father's face, highlighting the steel in Victor's cold eyes and the hint of something darker beneath the surface. Victoria stood beside Nick, her fists clenched so tightly her nails dug crescents into her palms, her eyes wide and brimming with disbelief and horror. They had uncovered countless family secrets over the years: corporate betrayals, clandestine power grabs, hidden marriages and illegitimate children, fake deaths and business deals sealed with manipulation. But nothing compared to the implication contained within the document sprawled across Victor's mahogany desk. At first glance it seemed mundane. Medical reports, phone logs, confidential facility transfers. But then, buried beneath fabricated names and misleading codes, was the unmistakable truth, a pattern of monitoring Nikki's deteriorating condition, not out of concern or love, but as part of some sinister experiment disguised as treatment. Victor had ordered her transfer to a private medical program years ago, claiming it was cutting-edge therapy. But the truth, revealed in stark black ink and confidential signatures, showed something chilling. Nikki was subjected to neurological manipulation, pushing her body and mind to their edge, intentionally triggering withdrawal and instability, all monitored and documented under Victor's directive. Nick's voice trembled as he whispered, "Dad, why would you put Mom through that?" Victoria felt her heart pound in her chest, each beat like a drum warning of danger, betrayal, and irreversible fracture in their already fragile family bond. She stepped forward, the tremor in her voice giving way to fury. "You let her suffer. You watched her spiral. You pretended to want to save her while standing there pulling the strings." Victor leaned back in his leather chair, his expression unreadable, though his eyes flashed with something: pride, defiance, madness. As he steepled his fingers, he spoke slowly, voice resonating like iron striking stone. "You don't understand. None of you have ever understood what it takes to protect this family. Nikki was in danger, real danger. Forces you cannot begin to comprehend sought to use her weakness to destroy us. I had to act." Nick slammed his fists against the desk, rattling the forbidden documents. He saw flashes of Nikki over the years: shaking hands, slurred speech, broken pleas, the endless cycle of addiction and sobriety she fought tooth and nail. Every relapse, every trembling withdrawal, every tear shed in secret, all now took on a horrifying new meaning. Had Victor engineered it? Manipulated it? Allowed it? Victoria's voice cracked with betrayal as she demanded, "Protect her? You exploited her struggle. You turned her illness into data." Victor rose slowly, like a king emerging from shadows, unshaken by their accusations. "I safeguarded her vulnerabilities to shield this family from enemies who would weaponize them. Better I control the weakness than allow outsiders to exploit it." The words hung in the air, poisonous, suffocating. Nick couldn't hold back. He lunged forward, grabbing Victor by the lapels, rage exploding through him like a long-dormant volcano finally erupting. Victoria rushed to pull Nick away, but then something inside her snapped as well. Decades of manipulation, favoritism, emotional warfare, her father always pitting them against one another, always orchestrating pain for what he called loyalty. She shoved Victor harshly, forcing him back against the desk. Papers flew. A glass shattered on the floor. Victor steadied himself, gaze narrowing. "You dare raise your hands against me?" Nick's voice broke, agonizing anguish spilling out mixed with pure fury. "You attacked Mom, Dad. Maybe not with fists, but you hurt her worse. You let her drown in her addiction. You let us believe she was weak, when all along you were controlling her pain." Victoria stepped between Nick and Victor, her voice a trembling whisper laced with lethal resolve. "You don't get to play God anymore." Victor moved to retrieve a concealed folder, but Nick shoved him again, yelling, "And no more lies." Victor glared back, a spark of desperation slipping through the stoic mask. "If those records go public, Nikki will die. You must obey me to protect her." That statement, uttered with icy certainty, struck Nick and Victoria like a physical blow. Victoria's thoughts raced. Was Victor threatening Nikki now to regain control? Would he rather let her die to maintain his legacy than admit wrongdoing? She realized then that Victor Newman had crossed the line from patriarch to tyrant, and there was no return. Nick grabbed Victor's arm, twisting it behind his back, forcing him forward over the desk. Victoria swept the incriminating documents into a single folder and held it behind her like a shield. Victor growled in pain, rage igniting. "You're making a grave mistake. I did what I had to do." Nick pressed harder, voice choked with grief. "And now we're doing what we have to do." Victoria's voice steadied, icy and resolute as steel. "We're going to protect Mom. From you." Victor strained, muscles tense like coiled steel, fighting their hold despite age beginning to weigh on him. "You ungrateful children. Nikki would be dead years ago without me. I built this family. I saved her." Nick's grip tightened. "You destroyed her to save yourself." Victoria stepped closer until she was face to face with Victor, finally seeing the truth. The father she idolized had become the monster she feared. "You kept her sick to keep control." Victor's expression hardened. Not denial, not remorse, but irritation at exposure. "Weakness invites predators. If Nikki remained vulnerable, our enemies would reveal themselves." Nick recoiled in disgust. "So you made her weak intentionally?" Victor didn't respond, but his silence was an admission that tore the final thread holding their fractured loyalty. Victoria whispered, voice cracking. "How could you justify poisoning your own wife's recovery?" Victor stared past them toward the family portrait hanging above the fireplace. "Everything I've built, every enemy I've crushed, every dynasty secured, required sacrifice." Nick erupted, slamming Victor against the desk again. "Not this sacrifice. Not Mom." Victoria stepped between them, blocking Victor's movement. "You don't control us anymore." Victor snarled, voice low. "You think you can stop me? This family survives because I lead. Without me, you will fall apart." Nick's voice broke. "We've already fallen apart, Dad. Because of you." Victoria lifted the folder. "These documents prove what you've done. We'll take them to the authorities if we have to." Victor inhaled sharply, calculating the threat. "You would destroy the Newman legacy? Expose your mother to public humiliation?" Nick answered, tears in his eyes. "We'll save her, even if we lose everything else." Victor stepped forward, dangerous intensity radiating from him. "I will not allow you to take Nikki from me." Victoria whispered coldly. "You already lost her the moment you decided pain was power." Victor lunged to grab the folder, but Nick and Victoria moved simultaneously, tackling him backward. The three collapsed to the floor, grappling, years of emotional torment erupting into physical struggle. Victor lashed out, fueled by adrenaline and fear, shouting, "I am this family. Without me, you are nothing." Nick pinned Victor's arm as Victoria wrestled the folder from his reach. Nikki's face flashed in Nick's mind, her shaking hands, empty stares, desperate apologies, and his grief ignited into strength. "We're done being pawns." Victoria scrambled to her feet, folder clutched tightly. "It ends tonight." Victor surged upward, but Nick grabbed him again, both sons breathing heavily, sweat and rage mingling. Victor gasped, struggling, fury etched into every line of his face. "If you walk away with that folder, you will regret it for the rest of your lives." Victoria paused, turning slowly, locking eyes with Victor. "We already regret trusting you." Nick shoved Victor toward the hearth, distancing himself. "Stay away from Mom." Victor stood, chest heaving, fury brewing beneath the surface. "If Nikki learns the truth, it will destroy her." Nick shook his head. "The truth will set her free from you." Victor's jaw clenched. "You think I'm the enemy, but the real threat is coming. I tried to prepare you. I needed data, proof, leverage." Victoria's voice rose, incredulous. "Leverage? Mom's suffering was leverage." Victor stepped closer, desperation creeping into his tone. "You don't understand. A war is coming for Newman Enterprises. Our enemies are watching, waiting for any vulnerability. Nikki's weakness was the key, and I made sure it belonged to me before they could take it." Nick recoiled. "You sound insane." Victor hissed. "You cannot beat them without me." Victoria backed toward the door. "We'll protect our family, just not your way." Nick pushed Victor one final time. "If you come near Mom or try to silence us, We'll burn your entire empire to the ground. Victor exhaled slowly, dark resolve settling like shadow across his features. Then you leave me no choice. Victoria froze halfway out the door. Is that a threat? Victor's voice dropped to a whisper that chilled them to the core. It's a promise. Nick stepped protectively between Victor and Victoria, fury forged into unwavering resolve. Try us. Victor stood motionless as his children turned away, the ominous folder containing his darkest secret held tightly in Victoria's trembling grasp. The door slammed shut behind them, leaving Victor alone in the dim, flickering light. He stared at the scattered documents still remaining on the desk, contingency plans, coded communications, experimental research notes, and he felt the weight of betrayal settle across his shoulders like a cloak of iron. This wasn't how it was supposed to unfold. He had predicted threats, anticipated corporate enemies, countered potential attacks, but he had failed to foresee rebellion from his own blood. Flames crackled in the fireplace, embers glowing like watchful eyes. Victor whispered into the darkness, voice laced with venomous determination, "You will come back to me. When the storm hits, you will beg for my protection." Meanwhile, Nick and Victoria staggered into the foyer, adrenaline slowly giving way to exhaustion and dread. Victoria clutched the folder to her chest as if afraid it might vanish and take the truth with it. Nick dialed his phone with trembling fingers. "We're getting Mom out of here tonight." Victoria nodded, tears streaming freely now that distance separated them from Victor's suffocating control. "He'll come after us," Nick replied, voice hollow. "Let him. We're done living in fear." Victoria whispered, "We exposed the truth, but are we ready for the consequences?" Nick hesitated before answering, "No, but we can't let him keep hurting her." The siblings stepped out into the frigid night, leaving behind the mansion that had sheltered generations of Newman triumphs and tragedies. On the other side of the door, Victor stood still, calculating his next move while the fire behind him roared, devouring wood like a hungry beast, illuminating the war that had just begun within the Newman family, a war fueled not by money or power, but by betrayal, vengeance, and an unforgivable secret that would tear apart the legacy Victor had spent his life constructing. He would not let go of control. He would rise again, stronger, more ruthless, ready to reclaim what was his. Nick and Victoria's footsteps echoed into the night, fading into the unknown, unaware of how far their father's reach could extend, or how deep his desperation would drive him. What began as a mission to protect Nikki had transformed into a declaration of war against their own flesh and blood. As they disappeared into darkness, one unanswered question haunted all three souls. Why attack Nikki? And the unspoken answer, far more terrifying than anything they had imagined, would soon emerge from the shadows Victor had tried to contain, sending shockwaves through the Newman empire before tearing the family apart forever. Nick and Victoria drove through the winding road away from the ranch, headlights carving through the darkness, but neither sibling spoke. The weight of what they'd uncovered sat thick between them, and every passing mile only intensified the dread of what Victor might do next. Victoria kept glancing back through the rear window, paranoia clawing at her nerves, convinced that any moment they'd see Victor's black car tailing them. Nick's knuckles whitened around the steering wheel. "We can't go home," he said finally, his voice stretched thin. "If Dad sent people to monitor Mom, he could be watching us too." That implication rippled through Victoria like ice. "Where do we take her?" Nick exhaled slowly. Somewhere he'd never expect. But even as he said those words, a sick realization kicked in. Nowhere felt safe when Victor Newman was the enemy. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, Victor stood alone, fists clenched so tightly veins bulged beneath the skin. He dialed a private encrypted line. A voice answered with a single word. "Sir." Victor's tone was cold and deliberate, his orders forged from betrayal and necessity. "Activate Protocol Shadow." A tense pause. "But sir," Victor cut him off. "They have the file. I want them tracked, monitored. Do not engage yet. Not until I say." He ended the call, staring into the fire as his jaw twitched. His children, his heirs, had crossed a line, and now he had to reassert control before the empire he built unraveled. In the car, Victoria clutched the folder tightly. Every page inside represented not only Nikki's pain, but the damning proof of Victor's plan. "Do you think Mom knew any of this?" she asked quietly. Nick shook his head. No. She loved him too much to see it. His voice thickened with grief. And he counted on that. Victoria looked at her brother, seeing the torment etched across his features. Nick had always defended Nikki, always tried to shield her from Victor's harsher machinations. Now he realized he'd been protecting her from the wrong threat all along. They pulled up to the darkened rehab facility on the outskirts of town, lights flickering like fading hope. Nick pounded on the side entrance until a startled nurse emerged, eyes widening at the sight of the Newman siblings. "We need Nikki," Nick demanded before the woman could speak. "Now. She's not safe here." The nurse hesitated, recognizing the urgency but aware of strict confidentiality rules. Victoria stepped forward, voice trembling. "Please, she's in danger." Something in her tone convinced the nurse, who nodded and hurried away. Multiple security cameras blinked red outside the facility. Unbeknownst to Nick and Victoria, the footage fed into a private channel monitored by men Victor trusted more than his own children. Inside, Nikki lay sleeping in a room where machines hummed softly. Her breathing was shallow, traces of tremors visible beneath the blanket. When the nurse gently woke her, Nikki stirred, confused, eyes groggy and unfocused. "Victoria? Nick?" she whispered. "What are you two doing here?" Nick swallowed hard, forcing calm. "Mom, we need to take you away from here." Nikki blinked repeatedly, trying to shake the fog of sedatives. "Victor. He arranged my treatment." "Where is he?" Victoria flinched at the name. "We'll explain later. Right now we just have to go." Nikki sat up, disoriented. Fear crept in. "What's wrong? Tell me." Nick and Victoria exchanged a heavy glance. How could they tell her the truth without shattering her world? As they hurried her down the empty corridor, alarms began silently flashing in the security room. Victor's men had triggered Phase 1 surveillance. Cameras repositioned, tracking their movement. Outside, unseen observers sat in black SUVs across the facility parking lot, speaking into encrypted comms. Target in motion, awaiting further instruction. Inside the SUV, Nikki clung weakly to Victoria, trembling not from withdrawal but from confusion and dread. Nick sped off, unaware of the vehicles that rolled out seconds later, headlights remaining dark to stay hidden. Nikki's voice cracked. "You two look terrified. Please, I deserve to know." Nick couldn't hold it back anymore. "Mom, Dad knew about your withdrawals, your relapses. He made it worse." Nikki's breath caught. "What do you mean he knew?" "Everyone knew I was weak." Victoria cut her off sharply. "You're not weak. He manipulated your treatment, controlled your symptoms." Nikki stared blankly, lips trembling. "No, he loves me." Victor would never. But even as she said it, pieces of memory resurfaced, moments Victor insisted she stay in facilities she never chose, unexplained medication changes, pressure to stay isolated during her lowest points. Her denial cracked into horror as realization dawned. He watched me suffer on purpose? Back at the ranch, Victor paced until his private line rang. "They've taken her," the voice reported. Victor closed his eyes, fury simmering beneath the calm. "Do not intercept yet. I want them to believe they are free." He hung up and gazed at Nikki's portrait on the mantel. His fingers brushed the frame, expression fractured by genuine pain. He whispered, "Everything I did was to save you, my love." But whether he believed that anymore was unclear. On the road, Nick's phone buzzed with an encrypted message from an unknown number. "You can't hide her. Bring her back before it's too late." Victoria saw the message, heart sinking. "He's already watching us." Nikki's breathing quickened. "What are you two talking about? Who's watching?" Nick met her gaze in the rearview mirror. "Dad had you monitored for years. Every doctor visit, every therapist. He orchestrated it." Nikki shook her head violently. "No, you're lying." Victor would never. But before she could finish, headlights flared behind them.